Good morning, everyone. Today, I will be focusing on two major areas which falls under the periphery of communication. They are types of communication and gestures which fall under the various types of nonverbal communication. Now, to begin with, first it is important to know what is communication. The term communication has been derived from the Latin word communico or communicare, which means to share. Now, what are we supposed to share? The term sharing refers to the sharing of any kind of ideas, knowledge, information, messages. And by the term sharing, we do not only mean that the thing or the information will be going from A to B. The passage of these information also needs a reciprocation. So any kind of communication cannot be considered effective or fruitful or successful if there is no feedback. So just one way, if the communication is going, then the communication cannot be considered as effective. So therefore, the communication or the message or the idea needs a reciprocation. It needs to be it needs to be answered back in order to understand whether the communication is successful or not. Feedback is very important. Now, this is the basic concept of what communication is. In today's class, we shall be focusing on the various types of communication. First, I will like to mention the various types of communication. Okay, types. Number one is verbal. verbal. This verbal communication has again been categorized into oral and written. Oral communication is the one which I'm doing right now, the one which we do through speaking, through usage of words which we utter from our mouth. So one is to one conversation or one is to many conversation which is done in an oral format by using our mouth. That is oral communication, which definitely falls under the category of verbal communication. The other type of verbal communication is written communication. As we all know that documentation is the core of any professional setup. If there is no proper documentation, then there is no validity or authenticity. Therefore, written communication is any type of document or any type of communication that we do through pen and paper, or even if we are typing something, that is also considered as verbal communication, to be precise, written one. Next, moving on, number two is non-verbal communication. Non-verbal communication doesn't require words. What nonverbal communication focuses on is the usage of your gestures, body language, posture, the way in which you are seeing, the way in which you are keeping your hands, the way in which you are sitting, standing, even entering a room. The personality of an individual always doesn't need to be expressed through words or languages. Our personality can also be expressed through the way in which we are looking at an object, the way in which we are sitting, standing, reclining, basically the positioning of our body. That refers to non-verbal communication, basically body language and gestures. Now, under non-verbal, we have 9 types of gestures, which I shall be focusing in my next lecture. The third type of communication is intra, I-N-T-R-A, intrapersonal. Intrapersonal communication. Intrapersonal communication refers to that kind of communication which we do with our own self. At times, you have noticed that you are thinking about something in your own mind. You're self contemplating, you are meditating about something, some issue that is maybe bothering you, or some issue that you are thinking about which is there in your mind. And you necessarily always don't share it with a second person or a third person. You tend to keep those thoughts within you. You self introspect, you talk about it with your own self, you think about it deeply. So, when you are communicating with your own self, when you are contemplating, that is self contemplating, when you are thinking deeply about some, some ideas, thoughts, or feelings, it is then known as intrapersonal. The spelling is important, I-N-T-R-A. I'll tell you why, because the fourth type is inter, I-N-T-E-R, personal. Interpersonal communication is very, very easy to understand, because when we are communicating either with one is to one or one is to many, the kind of communication that we all do. Now, interpersonal communication can also be termed as oral communication. Okay, so basically, when there is an exchange of words or ideas or feelings or emotions or any kind of information between either one person to other person or one to many, that is interpersonal communication. It can include conversation, it can also include a speech given by someone. Fifth is a very, very interesting type of communication. It is known as extra personal communication. It is a very interesting type of communication because it is something which is not known to most of us, and you will be surprised to know that this communication is not done with a human being. Yes, this type of communication is done with a species that is not human. It can be your pet dog, it can be your, like, any pet that you are keeping. So basically, or maybe aliens. If you have a chance of encountering with some aliens also, that can be considered as extrapersonal communication. Most of us have pets back at our home, and they have their own way of communicating, right? Obviously not through words, but through certain body languages, certain gestures, maybe through certain sounds, which the pet parent specifically understands. So when that type of communication is done, that is known as extrapersonal communication. Moving on to the last type of communication, mass or media. In today's world, there is no entity, I mean human entity, who is not in touch with mass communication or media communication. What are the variants of mass and media communication? That we all know: television, radio, internet. And via internet, we have so many other options: teleconferencing, video conferencing. The world is shrinking day by day, and all thanks to the mass and media communication. Now, this mass and media communication is not always one is to one communication, it is mostly one is to many. Okay, so whatever communication we do with the usage of any mass or media communication form, which I have told you the examples of, the like television, radio, internet, teleconferencing, video conferencing, such type of communication is known as mass or media communication. For example, I'm calling my friend, that will fall under mass communication. I'm writing a letter via an email, it will fall under the category of mass or media communication. I'm blogging, I'm vlogging, obviously mass or media communication. The Prime Minister of our country is addressing the nation, mass or media communication. The news that we get through television or through internet, sitting in the cozy corners of our room, all thanks to science and advancement, mass and media communication. So let us have a very, very quick revision of all the 6 types of communication. To begin with, communication means to share information, feelings, ideas, but communication is considered effective or successful only when there is a desired response or feedback. Also, verbal has, I mean, the first type of communication that we are talking about is verbal. It has oral and written. There are 2 categories. Oral means that we say through our mouth, and written is any kind of documentation. Non-verbal is body language or gestures. Intrapersonal is talking with your own self, meditating, self-contemplating, soliloquizing. Anyway, and interpersonal is when you are having a conversation with someone or more than one person. Extrapersonal is when you are having a conversation or when you are interacting with a species that is specifically not human. And the last one was mass or media communication, which is obviously when we are communicating through various channels which are there by the boon of science and technology that we use to communicate, either one is to one or one is to many. That's all for that various types of communication. Thank you.